Good afternoon, Emily. How you doing? You well?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, blessed, always, in always. All the better for talking to you because there's some new music coming, and I've had the chance to get a listen to it before everybody else, and I really appreciate the fact that I'm able to do that because it just reminded me why I love your voice, right? So, but before I fan out, and just kind of get all immersed in all things non-journalistic, it's coming on November 17th. It's called How Were We to Know? Um,
Yeah.
I love that track, Emily. I have to tell you that from the jump. Like, I really, really love that track. I know people ain't gonna hear it for a minute, but why did you name it that? And just tell me about the whole creative process behind putting that track together.
Um, how are we to know? I was trying to get at, it's like a reconciliation after the relationship's fallen apart, really. And I'm kind of hinting it, when you fall in love, is that, it's senseless, it's that naivety, and it's no one would ever get in a relationship if they could see in the future and it doesn't work out. So it's kind of like being present and enjoying love in that moment, but then not looking back in anger, really, not carrying that hate or upset as you move through life, because I think that can weigh people down. So it's just kind of giving you and the other person a bit of a break, like we tried our best. How are we to know? But you're still going through the hurt. And that's why I really wanted to call the album that, because not just in relationships, also in life, like we can't see into the future. But if you're always living so cautiously that you never give yourself fully to anything, you're never present there fully, then I think you can waste your whole life. So, you have to be kind to yourself in some sense. Like, how are we to know what was going to happen? But at least we gave it our best shot, basically.
When I don't need to know, who or when you're referring to that in terms of that period that inspired this track, but when you were in the studio, when you were in the booth and you were pulling it together, drawing on the energy to kind of put it out there. Talk about that process. Is that an easy thing for you, given the instrument that you've been blessed with, that you refine, hone as you go forward? But was it an easy process, a cathartic process? Was it hard? How did it go for you?
It was strangely quite easy. I think when you're like really charged up and your emotions just up to here, that's when the music comes out just so effortlessly. I was in there with Chris Loco, who's the producer, and Phil Lee, who was on the keys. And the chords started going around. He hooked me in with a mic. And that's why I love engineers that were recording while you're writing, because you can capture these really special moments that you can't recreate. So it really just felt like, yeah, very cathartic. I just felt like I was just saying how I felt, and it just all came out super, super easy. And I usually find that the songs that are the most powerful or end up connecting the most are those ones that have that natural flow.
I don't know how the album's gonna flow, but I listened to All This Love, and then it went into another track which was very different. My boy likes to party, right? We'll get back to that. But then it got very different with Lighthouse and How Are We to Know? Obviously, there's no place that or pocket that this sits in terms of whether it's be up tempo, low that you've kind of produced and thrown a bit of everything in there. Was that intentional, or did it just was it just what come out in the end?
Yeah, I feel like I picked the songs that I felt told. I wanted each part of the story to be told without it being repeated.
Mm.
Also, I hate being boxed into any kind of specific genre of music. I always want my lyric and my voice to be familiar to people, but I love being able to explore. Like I grew up listening to so many different types of music, so it was great to do Lighthouse with a bit more of a lovers rock groove, and then go straight into a ballad, which is more kind of like 80s pop. So I love having that freedom to like float around and let the lyric dictate what the production should be. I think everything should kind of harmonize on every level so that, the priority is that the message gets across and the music works for that message.
So fifth album, right? Like you said, you didn't want to retell the story in each track. You tried to segment. So fifth album, we've got the theme. When did the theme come to you though? Because I can imagine you knew the fifth album was something you had to do, but probably didn't have a theme. So when did the theme come to you? How long has this process taken?
Quite a while. I mean, some of the songs on there are quite a few years old, but they were finished, during the past couple of years. So it's a strange one. It kind of feels like all of these particles slowly come together, and then you start, it's like a kind of sculpting, and then it starts to make sense. And then it just felt that every song I naturally gravitated to for the album was about these very deep feelings of love. So I think when I started to realize I was doing that subconsciously, it was like, okay, this is a tale of love and of life. And when How Are We to Know, that was always a song for me that I've wanted to release that one for ages. And I think, it really did, I really dug into my soul to get that one out. So it just felt like the perfect title for the album. But yeah, it's slowly, I'm not kind of consciously trying to, I want to make an album about this. It just, I slowly let it kind of form organically.
Too Much and Love are beautiful. Talk about the influences for both of those and what part of the story you're telling. Start with Too Much.
Too Much, again, it's like, when those songs come out, it really was, I got on with Johnny Coffer, he played the keys, and it's just like there's all these stories just waiting to go, because you don't often in general conversation get to talk on such a deep level. Or music's a wonderful thing because it allows you to expose your soul and be very vulnerable, and you don't get the opportunity in life. So Too Much was another one of those. It just came from like being highly charged emotionally, and that one flowed out. And I wanted to paint a kind of a visual with that one. I love storytelling through the lyric, and this one particularly, we have the car, the first lyrics, like it's 3 a.m. I'm outside your door. I'm trying to put myself in a specific scene, and I enjoy writing like that sometimes because it puts you emotionally into that state, even if you're not in it when you're in the studio, obviously. And then with Love, it's always been like the biggest mission of mine with music ever since Read All About It, Next to Me. Beyond saying what I've gone through or hopefully giving people stories to relate to, I want my music to spread joy and love. I want it to be uplifting people. I want it to be their strength whenever they need it. So for me, Love is one of the most important tracks on the album. And I can't wait to, I think it's probably going to close my live shows, because that's the message I want people to be left with. Music is, yes, it's a great storyteller, but the power of music, sometimes we forget, like it can really bring people together, especially when I go to church and the music just gets deep inside your bones and your soul. I think that is and suddenly you're crying. You don't know where it's come from, but it's almost like music can get past all of that conditioning, all of that programming. It's like this direct sword into your heart. So Love, for me, that's my dad's favorite, actually. He's like, can that be the first single? But I definitely want to make a visual for that, because I think that's essentially the message I want to promote.
No, it's a beautiful sentiment. It's something I live by. Love is for me always the answer, no matter how you steer that towards whatever situation you're in. Just use that as a guiding light. Talking on that, then, on the PR that I received, you said that being romantic gets you in trouble sometimes. Can you share any occasions or examples of how that's been the case for you?
Well, I'll always just put, always put love, always put romance before anything else. Sometimes it can become blinding. I think when you're lucky enough to meet someone that is in that very similar mind frame, and there are no games, there's no nothing going on where you can get hurt if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, that's a beautiful thing. But I think to meet people on that very same level, because like you said, I do believe love's always the answer, but it's not always the easiest thing to do. It's easy. Sometimes people pretend of love, or sometimes people imitate love. So it is hard to decipher what's real, what's not. So it has got me in trouble in just the fact I've always been open, sensitive, vulnerable, and perhaps maybe a bit naive when it's come to that area of my life. But I feel lucky now that I have found someone with that, similar commitment to love and respect for love. So, but it took a while. It took a while to get there.
Well, how are we to know?
Exactly.
There for You. You're going to lead with that as the single. Why? Of all the tracks, why? Why that one?
It just felt like the right energy. I think, on top of thinking about the message, it felt like I want to start with a bit of tempo. Like I want to ease into these deeper, How Are We to Know just felt like, let's warm up into that, because it's quite heavy emotionally. Whereas There for You, it's got emotion, and it's definitely got this message of love takes perseverance. It can't just be this throwaway thing, here today, gone tomorrow. And also, it's got a bit of a groove. So for me, I just wanted to open nicely, gently, and then get into the kind of the deeper stuff.
Well, it's interesting you say deeper stuff, because all this love, at the end of that track, I played it a couple of times, and I found myself saying to myself, I wonder if you've worked out what to do with it. Yeah. I did wonder.
I don't know, but you got to find a constructive way to channel it. And I think a lot of people that may suffer from ADHD or feel that they're these very sensitive, hyper energized people, I think we can find it, unless you're really channeling it into something that is constructive or give in some way, it also that can get into trouble. So still figuring it out. I think I'm getting there, getting a bit wiser.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. I think everyone's going to love this. I think there's a bit of something for everybody. I appreciate you looking resplendent, I must add, especially in your outfit. And I'm going to give away when I'm doing this here, and I bet it's World Afro Day today. So,
oh, cool.
Apt,
Yeah.
I must say. So, it just before we part ways, is there anything else you want to share with us in terms of this album, creating it, how it's rolled out? Do you expect, have any expectations in terms of how people receive it?
I've tried not to have expectations, because I think it's one way just to no matter what success you have, you end up setting yourself up to, I don't know. I try not to have expectations these days, but what I do hope is that it really emotionally connects with people. That's the biggest thing, that people feel that it's really real, and it gives them just a bit of life, a bit of hope that love is real, and it's okay to feel it, really, really feel it. So that's what I hope, and we'll see.